23 years before the birth of Christ, there was a side of Rome that its marble statues, its proud monuments, and its official histories never revealed. A side the elite swore to bury, a side scrubbed from the archives, and remembered only in whispers. Tonight, you will walk into a villa where one tiny mistake, 3 drops of wine, opened the door to secrets Rome's most powerful families never wanted the world to hear. This is how it began. A young slave Demetrius stands at the edge of a dining room in a luxurious villa overlooking the Bay of Naples. In his hands a silver wine pitcher. On the floor, a fresh mistake. 3 drops, barely bigger than tears. But in this house, that is enough to end a life. Marcus Vitius Pollio, a man born into nothing, who rose into unimaginable wealth, stopped speaking mid-sentence. 7 senators and their wives fall completely silent. You could hear a needle touch the mosaic floor, but what they hear instead is water echoing from the courtyard pond, a pond famous in Rome, not for its beauty, but for what swims inside it. Moray eels, imported oversized, starved deliberately, so they perform when Pollio wants to impress his guests. The punishment for spilling wine is to be thrown into that pond alive. Demetrius doesn't resist the guards grabbing him. He's seen what resisting does. He has heard the screams late at night. He has watched others walk toward that pond and never return. Now it's his turn. The senators rise from their couches, some fascinated, some pretending not to enjoy it, but not one of them moves to stop it. Politics in Rome wasn't just about power. It was about cruelty as entertainment. Demetrius is dragged closer. He can see the black water rippling. He can see shapes moving under the surface. He can hear hunger. And then something no one expects happens. One guest steps forward. Younger, quieter, someone who has spent the entire dinner watching, not speaking. History does not record his name, but it recorded what he said. This is wrong. In Rome, those words are almost treason. A man's slaves are his property. To question it is to insult him publicly. The room freezes. Pollio's face twists with anger. The young man does not move. The guards stop. For long seconds, nobody breathes. And then something strange. Pollio lowers his hand. He releases Demetrius. Not because he felt mercy, not because he agreed, but because the moment was ruined. A spectacle works only when the audience wants to see blood. Now the air is poisoned with discomfort. But Pollio does not forgive humiliation, not in private life, and never in Roman high society. The young man who dared to speak would soon pay, not with death, but with something worse. Years of silent destruction, lost opportunities, closed doors, whispers that follow him everywhere, a career that begins to rot without anyone ever seeing the knife, because in Rome, the elite punished rebellion not with swords, but with shadows. Tonight, you will learn 17 secrets the Roman elite worked tirelessly to erase, things they hid from their records and from the world. The story starts here with 3 drops of wine, a terrified slave, and a man who refused to look away. The villa grows quiet again after Demetrius is released. The dinner resumes, at least on the surface. Voices rise, laughter returns, wine flows. But under all of it, attention coils like a snake beneath the marble floor. The unnamed young guest sits back down at his couch, but his eyes keep drifting to Demetrius, who is now kneeling near a column, hands shaking uncontrollably. No one tells the boy he is safe. No one comforts him. No one acknowledges that his life almost ended minutes ago, because in Rome, slaves were not people. They were tools that breathed. The senators speak loudly again, on purpose, to drown the memory of their own inaction. One of them, Senator Gaius Pompeianus, leans toward his wife and whispers, not softly enough, "Foolish boy." He should be grateful he wasn't thrown in. His wife forces a smile, the kind that hides cruelty behind elegance. The unnamed guest hears every word, but he says nothing. He has already disrupted the evening once. Doing it again would be career suicide. Instead, he studies Pollio. Marcus Vitius Pollio sits reclining on a red cushion, fingers tapping the table slowly, classically, methodically, a man pretending to enjoy the evening while replaying an insult in his mind. The tapping is a warning. Every Roman at the table recognizes it. Pollio does not shout. He does not need to. He stores anger like a banker stores coins, carefully, patiently, with interest. The unnamed guest knows he is in danger. He has no powerful family to protect him. He is respected for his intelligence, not his lineage. And in Rome, intelligence without connections was the fastest way to die forgotten. Pollio lifts his cup of wine. His voice fills the villa. "Friends, I fear we have allowed emotions to interrupt our evening." The senators nod obediently. Pollio continues, "Let us not dwell on small matters. Rome was not built by indulging weakness." Some of the guests chuckle, not because it is funny, but because refusing to laugh might be interpreted as disloyalty. The unnamed guest does not laugh. He holds his cup still. Even this small act, this refusal, does not go unnoticed. Pollio's eyes flicker toward him, only for a moment, but it is enough. A seed has been planted. After the final course, honey cakes, dates, and imported Egyptian figs, the guests rise for a walk through the courtyard. The night is warm, cicadas humming in the distant hills, the stars sharp as spear tips in the sky. The pond sits at the center, its black water shining under torchlight. The guests do not walk too close. Everyone knows what lies beneath. Demetrius stands 10 paces away, forced to remain near the pond as a reminder of his mistake. One senator remarks, "Pollio, you spoil your slaves." Had this happened in my house? Well, you know, Pollio grins. "Yes, but mercy is a performance too," and the group laughs. Only the unnamed guest stands silent. He walks closer to the pond than the others, close enough to see movement beneath the surface, long, pale bodies swirling in slow circles. The eels sense vibrations. They sense the nearness of flesh. A slave girl approaches with a lantern, her eyes cast down, her steps shake. Fear lives in every inch of her posture. The unnamed guest watches her carefully, then asks quietly, "How long have these creatures been starved?" She lowers her head further. 3 days, sir. 3 days. Long enough to make them desperate. Long enough to make a punishment look like entertainment. Pollio overhears. He steps beside the unnamed guest, voice smooth as oil. "They are magnificent, aren't they? Rome is fed by men who are hungry. Why should my eels be different?" The guest replies, "You call this magnificence. I call it fear." Pollio smiles wider, the kind of smile a man wears when he has decided something permanent about someone else. He leans closer. "I will give you some advice. In Rome, it is unwise to feel too much for those who cannot repay you. The unnamed guest looks back at him. And it is unwise, Polio, to believe power lasts forever. For the first time that night, Polio's smile drops. The air between them sharpens, thin as glass. The other senators sense the shift. They pretend to admire a statue nearby, but they are listening. Everyone is listening. Polio finally speaks. Perhaps you should leave my villa tonight with a clear understanding. Mercy is not a virtue in Rome. It is a liability. And cruelty, the young man answers, is not strength. It is a confession of fear. A long silence follows. The pond ripples. The eels twist beneath the surface. Polio does not respond. He simply turns and walks away. And that moment, that tiny moment, will change the young man's life forever. When Demetrius is finally dismissed to the slave quarters, he does not sleep. His body shakes for hours. Nor does the unnamed guest sleep. He lies awake in his visitor's room, listening to the pond outside, thinking about the boy he saved and about the man he just challenged. Two futures began tonight, one belonging to a slave who tasted death and lived, the other belonging to a Roman who dared to break the silence. Both will collide again, but not as they expect, because the first secret of Rome's elite is this: they never punished rebellion immediately. They waited and destroyed you from the shadows, and Polio is already planning. Morning arrives in Campania the way it always does, soft, golden, indifferent. A gentle breeze moves through Polio's vineyard, carrying the scent of grapes, dust, and something colder beneath it, the memory of last night. Servants rush through the villa to prepare for their master's awakening. No one mentions the spilled wine. No one mentions the confrontation, but everyone feels it. Silence in a Roman household was never peaceful. It was strategic. The unnamed guest, let's finally give him a name. Lucius Marcellus Varro wakes before dawn. He has barely slept. The lamps in his room have burned out, and thin gray morning light pushes through the curtains. He dresses slowly, mind replaying every word he spoke to Polio, every look, every moment that could be interpreted as an insult. In Rome, insults were currency, and Polio was rich enough to spend revenge freely. Varro tightens his belt and exhales. He is not afraid of death, but he knows Polio well enough to fear something worse, a long, patient dismantling of his entire life. At breakfast, the atmosphere is brittle politeness. Polio greets Varro with a wide smile, the type of smile that never reached the eyes. "Lucius," he says, "you honor my home with your presence." Varro bows slightly. "And you honor Rome with your hospitality." Their voices are calm, measured, civilized, but beneath their words runs a current of hostility so pure it could poison the wine on the table. The other guests know what is happening. They speak carefully. They avoid eye contact. They pray silently that Polio's wrath will not splash onto them. This is the second secret of Rome's elite. True punishment never happens in public. It occurs quietly and visibly in favors withdrawn and whispers planted in careers derailed one conversation at a time. And it begins today. As the meal ends, a steward approaches Varro respectfully. "Master Polio requests a moment before your departure?" Varro nods. He expected this. He follows the steward down a mosaic corridor into Polio's private library, a room filled with scrolls, bronze busts of philosophers, and the faint scent of parchment and power. Polio stands by the window, looking out toward the sea. He does not turn when he speaks. "You embarrassed me, Varro. Varro remains still. I objected, he answers softly. That is not the same thing. Pollio finally turns. His expression is calm, too calm. And you believe objections are tolerated among men of our rank? Varro meets his gaze. I believe right and wrong still exist, even in Rome. For a moment, Pollio's face betrays confusion, as if Varro has spoken a language he's never heard. Then amusement spreads slowly. You're young, Pollio says. You still think virtue matters. Rome is built on usefulness, not virtue. Varro's jaw tightens. And what use is cruelty? Pollio steps closer. Control, he whispers. Fear, order. The world is held together by the terror of the powerless. He pauses. And by the loyalty of men wise enough not to challenge those above them. Varro understands the message. It is not a threat. It is a promise. Pollio continues. You will leave my villa today, and I will speak no more of last night. Varro nods once. But, Pollio adds, voice softening in a way far more dangerous than anger, your future, Varro, will unfold differently now. Varro exhales slowly. How differently? Pollio smiles. You'll see. Perhaps in a year, perhaps tomorrow. But someday you will feel the weight of being inconvenient. He turns away. You may go. Varro leaves the room with steady steps, but when the door closes behind him, his heartbeat quickens. He knows exactly what Pollio has done. The most powerful punishment in Rome was not exile, not execution, not public disgrace. It was the quiet removal of opportunity. A patron who stops writing letters, a senator who withdraws support, a friend who misplaces your name in a conversation, a client who suddenly finds a better ally. In Rome, a man could starve without ever losing a coin, starve on silence and unspoken disapproval. Varro walks out of the villa through the same courtyard where Demetrius nearly died the night before. Workers are cleaning the pond's edges. The water is dark as obsidian. The eels swirl slowly beneath the surface. And there, kneeling beside a stone basin, is Demetrius. He looks up when Varro passes. Their eyes meet. For a moment, neither speaks. Demetrius opens his mouth as if to offer thanks or apology or something in between. But Varro shakes his head gently. Say nothing, he whispers. It is safer. Demetrius hesitates, then bows his head. Varro steps away, leaving the villa behind him, knowing what he has sacrificed and what he has earned. Not glory, not honor, not power, but an enemy whose patience lasts years, a man whose cruelty was praised as culture, a man whose influence could turn a reputation to dust without ever lifting a hand. Pollio watches Varro leave from his library window. He says nothing. He simply memorizes the direction Varro walks. Because men like Pollio didn't send assassins, they sent whispers. And whispers in Rome killed more men than blades. 2 weeks after leaving Pollio's villa, Lucius Marcellus Varro returns to Rome. The city greets him the way it greets everyone, with noise, heat, and 1,000 rumors buzzing through the streets like flies over figs. Rome always smelled of ambition, and ambition in Rome smelled like sweat, smoke, and fear. Varro steps off his horse into the courtyard of his modest domus in the Aventine district. He is greeted not with excitement but with caution. His steward Publius bows. Welcome home, master. We've had visitors. Varro pauses. What kind? Publius hesitates. The kind who ask questions but never answer any. Ah, the punishment has already begun. The next morning, Varro attends the Curia for a routine Senate session. These meetings are never routine. They are battlegrounds disguised as politics. Marble columns rise around him, the air thick with the scent of oiled hair, perfume, and the sweat of men pretending to be gods. Varro enters with measured confidence. He has no reason officially to fear anything, but something feels wrong. Senator Flaccus, who used to clap Varro on the back like an old friend, now only nods vaguely. Senator Marinus, who once invited Varro to dinner weekly, walks past him, as if Varro is a servant carrying empty plates. Even worse, a group of younger senators are whispering while glancing at him. Not whispering to him, whispering about him. Varro sits in his usual place. He waits for someone to greet him. No one does. This cold, calculating isolation is exactly how Rome dismantled a man who still breathed. Early in the session, the consul reads a proposal for a new infrastructure project near the Tiber. Has spent months drafting an engineering amendment to improve the plan. He raises his hand to speak. The consul looks directly at him and chooses someone else. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Finally, Varro is acknowledged. He rises. He speaks clearly, slowly, explaining the structural risks of the current proposal, offering a more efficient design. But before he can finish, Senator Calvus interrupts sharply. Are we truly expected to take advice from someone whose judgment has recently been questioned? The room falls silent. Varro blinks. He had expected whispers, not an ambush. Questioned? Varro repeats. By whom? But Calvus does not answer. He simply gestures vaguely, like a man signaling to smoke in the air. You know how Rome is, he says. Rumors move faster than truth. Laughter rolls through the Curia like a wave, slow at first, then contagious. Varro feels the ground shift beneath him. Later, outside the Senate house, he pulls aside an acquaintance, Senator Faustus. What is happening? Viewer demands. Faustus glances around, voice a whisper. You should not have embarrassed Vidius Pollio. Varro's stomach tightens. Is he doing this? Faustus shakes his head quickly. No, not openly. He would never. That is the point. Varro exhales sharply. So what has he said? Nothing, Faustus answers. That is what he has done. Varro stares at him, confused. Faustus steps closer. Listen carefully, Lucius. Pollio has not accused you of anything. He has not spoken against you. He has simply spoken elsewhere. Where? In the rooms where your name needed to be spoken. In the conversations where a favor could be asked on your behalf. He lowers his voice further. He avoided your name. He avoided your recommendations. He avoided supporting anything that might benefit you. Varro feels a chill rise through him. That was enough. In Rome, failure to endorse a man was indistinguishable from condemning him. Faustus whispers one final truth. Reputation in this city is built on the illusion of universal approval. Remove even one thread, and the whole tapestry collapses. He steps back. Pollio pulled 3 threads. Varro swallows. And now? Faustus sighs. Now the rest of Rome will pull the others. That evening, Varro returns home early. He closes the door and stands in the quiet. He should feel defeated, but instead he feels something sharper, resolve. He lights a lamp. He sits at his writing table. He pulls out his wax tablet. He writes 2 words, not finished, because there is something Pollio has not accounted for. Varro is not a typical Roman noble. He does not crave luxury or political theater or the approval of men who feed slaves to eels. He was born poor. He earned everything he has. He has survived worse than whispers. But Polio? Polio has never faced a man who won't bow to him. That imbalance, wealth versus courage, is about to tear open the first cracks in Polio's armor. The war has begun, not with daggers, not with poison, not with soldiers, but with something more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose and everything left to expose. And he has only just started digging into Polio's secrets. Because the third secret of Rome's elite is this: their reputations were spotless only because the people they destroyed were never allowed to speak. But Varro is going to speak. 2 weeks after leaving Polio's villa, Lucius Marcellus Varro returns to Rome. The city greets him the way it greets everyone, with noise, heat, and 1,000 rumors buzzing through the streets like flies over figs. Rome always smelled of ambition, and ambition in Rome smelled like sweat, smoke, and fear. Varro steps off his horse into the courtyard of his modest domus in the Aventine district. He is greeted not with excitement but with caution. His steward Publius bows. "Welcome home, master." "We've had visitors." Varro pauses. "What kind?" Publius hesitates. "The kind who ask questions but never answer any." "Ah, the punishment has already begun." The next morning, Varro attends the Curia for a routine Senate session. These meetings are never routine. They are battlegrounds disguised as politics. Marble columns rise around him, the air thick with the scent of oiled hair, perfume, and the sweat of men pretending to be gods. Varro enters with measured confidence. He has no reason officially to fear anything, but something feels wrong. Senator Flaccus, who used to clap Varro on the back like an old friend, now only nods vaguely. Senator Marinus, who once invited Varro to dinner weekly, walks past him, as if Varro is a servant carrying empty plates. Even worse, a group of younger senators are whispering while glancing at him, not whispering to him, whispering about him. Varro sits in his usual place. He waits for someone to greet him. No one does. This cold, calculating isolation is exactly how Rome dismantled a man who still breathed. Early in the session, the consul reads a proposal for a new infrastructure project near the Tiber, has spent months drafting an engineering amendment to improve the plan. He raises his hand to speak. The consul looks directly at him and chooses someone else. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Finally, Varro is acknowledged. He rises. He speaks clearly, slowly, explaining the structural risks of the current proposal, offering a more efficient design. But before he can finish, Senator Calvus interrupts sharply. "Are we truly expected to take advice from someone whose judgment has recently been questioned?" The room falls silent. Varro blinks. He had expected whispers, not an ambush. Questioned? Varro repeats. By whom? But Calvus does not answer. He simply gestures vaguely, like a man signaling to smoke in the air. "You know how Rome is," he says. Rumors move faster than truth. Laughter rolls through the Curia like a wave, slow at first, then contagious. Varro feels the ground shift beneath him. Later, outside the Senate house, he pulls aside an acquaintance, Senator Faustus. "What is happening?" Viewer demands. Faustus glances around, voice a whisper. "You should not have embarrassed Vidius Polio." Varro's stomach tightens. Is he doing this? Faustus shakes his head quickly. No, not openly. He would never. That is the point. Varro exhales sharply. So what has he said? Nothing, Faustus answers. That is what he has done. Varro stares at him, confused. Faustus steps closer. Listen carefully, Lucius. Pollio has not accused you of anything. He has not spoken against you. He has simply spoken elsewhere. Where? In the rooms where your name needed to be spoken. In the conversations where a favor could be asked on your behalf. He lowers his voice further. He avoided your name. He avoided your recommendations. He avoided supporting anything that might benefit you. Varro feels a chill rise through him. That was enough. In Rome, failure to endorse a man was indistinguishable from condemning him. Faustus whispers one final truth. Reputation in this city is built on the illusion of universal approval. Remove even one thread, and the whole tapestry collapses. He steps back. Pollio pulled 3 threads. Varro swallows. And now? Faustus sighs. Now the rest of Rome will pull the others. That evening, Varro returns home early. He closes the door and stands in the quiet. He should feel defeated, but instead he feels something sharper, resolve. He lights a lamp. He sits at his writing table. He pulls out his wax tablet. He writes 2 words, not finished, because there is something Pollio has not accounted for. Varro is not a typical Roman noble. He does not crave luxury or political theater or the approval of men who feed slaves to eels. He was born poor. He earned everything he has. He has survived worse than whispers. But Pollio? Pollio has never faced a man who won't bow to him. That imbalance, wealth versus courage, is about to tear open the first cracks in Pollio's armor. The war has begun, not with daggers, not with poison, not with soldiers, but with something more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose and everything left to expose. And he has only just started digging into Pollio's secrets. Because the third secret of Rome's elite is this: their reputations were spotless only because the people they destroyed were never allowed to speak. But Varro is going to speak. Emily woke up the next morning with a strange sense of clarity. Not happiness, not relief, but a quiet awareness. Almost like the air around her was finally settling after a long storm. She sat at the edge of her bed for a while, legs hanging over the side, feeling the cold wood against her feet. She didn't rush. She didn't reach for her phone. She simply breathed. For so many years, her mornings were battles. Battles against dread, against guilt, against memories that clung to her before she was even fully awake. But today felt different. Not perfect, not healed, just possible. The walk that changed something. Instead of making coffee, she grabbed a light sweater and stepped outside. The neighborhood was still waking up. Dog walkers, mail trucks, neighbors carrying grocery bags. She walked slowly, letting the cool morning air touch her face. Every step felt like a small release. On the corner of Maple Street, she passed an elderly woman tending her flower bed. Something about the woman's calmness, her gentle hands brushing petals, the care she put into each plant, made Emily stop. The woman looked up and smiled the kind of soft smile that didn't need words. "You're up early," the woman said. Emily returned the smile. "I'm trying something new." The woman chuckled warmly. That's how everything good begins. Emily didn't know why, but those words hit her deeper than they should have. The unopened box. When she returned home, her eyes fell on something she had avoided for years. A small cardboard box tucked in the corner of her closet. Her mother's belongings. She hadn't opened it since the funeral. She couldn't. It felt like opening that box would tear open wounds she barely managed to stitch together. But today, something inside her whispered, "You're ready to look? Even if it hurts." With shaky hands, she pulled it out, placed it on the floor, and opened the lid. A wave of memories hit her like warm wind. Her mother's handwriting on old recipe cards, a faded scarf she always wore in winter, a small silver watch Emily used to play with as a child. Then she found it, a letter. Her name written on the envelope in her mother's soft handwriting. Her breath caught. She didn't open it immediately. She held it against her chest, letting the moment wash over her. Finally, she unfolded the paper. The letter wasn't long. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't full of life-changing secrets. It simply said, "I know you and your father don't understand each other now, but one day you will need each other more than you believe. And I hope when that day comes you choose love over pride." Emily covered her mouth with her hand as tears fell silently. Not the desperate, painful tears of grief, but the tender kind that come from being reminded you were loved even in ways you never noticed. The phone call that night, she called her father. Not because she had to, not because she was fixing everything, but because she wanted to continue, even just a little. Her father answered on the second ring. They talked about simple things, what they ate, how work was, the weather. Nothing big, nothing heavy. But underneath every word was an unspoken truth. Both of them were trying, and sometimes that's the bravest thing two broken people can do. Before hanging up, her father hesitated. "Emily, thank you for giving me another chance." She swallowed softly. Her voice almost broke, but not from sadness, from softness. We both needed one. A different kind of night later, as the sky faded into shades of navy and purple, Emily sat on her balcony again. She wrapped herself in a blanket, her mother's letter resting on her lap. For the first time in years, silence didn't scare her. She didn't feel the weight on her chest. She didn't replay old arguments. She didn't analyze every mistake she ever made. She just existed, and that was enough. The truth was becoming clearer. Healing isn't a dramatic moment. It's not a sudden transformation. It's the gentle return to yourself after years of being away. She looked at the city lights below. Each window glowing felt like a reminder. Every person carries a story. Every person is healing from something invisible. And yet, life goes on. She whispered into the quiet night, "I'm not lost anymore. I'm just becoming someone new." And in that moment, without applause, without witnesses, without any dramatic music, Emily realized something powerful. This was the first night she felt truly alive. The first few hours after Michael's father left had always felt like a scar he carried around silently, but he had never told Emily the entire truth, not until now. When Michael places 2 mugs of tea on the kitchen table that night, Emily can already tell something is different. He's quieter, softer around the edges, as if he's been holding something inside for too long. "Emily," gently. "You look like you're about to say something heavy." "Michael, yeah, I think it's time I tell you the real version, the one I don't tell people." Emily nods, giving him the kind of attentive silence only someone who genuinely cares can give. Michael exhales slowly. "Michael, when my dad left, everyone thinks it was just some normal divorce. You know, Dad meets someone else, marriage falls apart, the usual story. But it wasn't like that at all." Emily leans in. "Emily, what happened?" Michael pauses, fingers tracing the rim of his mug. Michael, I was 14. The night he left, he didn't pack a single thing. Not a jacket, not a toothbrush, not even his wallet. He just walked out. A long, uncomfortable quiet settles between them. Emily. What triggered it? Michael. My parents had been arguing for weeks. Money, work, responsibilities. But that night, something snapped in him. He said he couldn't breathe in that house anymore. And then he turned to me, just me, and said, "You're the man now. Take care of your mother." And then he left. Emily's eyes softened with shock and sympathy. Emily. 14? Michael, that's not something a kid should carry. Michael, bitter laugh. No kidding, but I tried. I did everything. Worked part-time jobs, managed bills, kept the house running. I thought if I worked hard enough, maybe he'd come back, but he never did. Not even a phone call. Emily slides her hand over his, squeezing gently. He looks up, finally meeting her eyes. Michael, so when you said you were scared of losing yourself, I panicked. Because I know exactly what it feels like to lose someone, and then lose pieces of yourself trying to fill their space. Emily's face softens, guilt flickering briefly. Emily, I didn't know it hit you like that. Michael, you couldn't have known. I never told anyone, but it's why I'm protective, why I sometimes overthink, why I'm terrified of repeating his mistakes. Emily moves her chair closer. Emily. You're not him, Michael. Not even a little. Michael gives her a sad smile, quiet but grateful. A moment of honesty Emily wasn't expecting. Then Emily speaks, slowly at first. Emily. When I said I was scared of losing myself, it didn't mean I want to lose you. It meant I'm scared of turning into the version of myself I was before I met you. Michael frowns gently. Michael, what do you mean? Emily's voice trembles slightly, not from fear, but from vulnerability she has never shared. Emily. I've always been the person who takes responsibility for everyone. At work, at home, with friends. I've always been the one who fixes things, holds people together, fills in emotional gaps. And when someone finally tries to take care of me, I don't know what to do with that. It makes me feel guilty and selfish. Michael's expression softens with understanding. Michael, you think leaning on someone makes you a burden? Emily, yeah. Michael, Emily. People who love you don't think of you as a burden. They think of you as a human being. Emily's eyes shine like she wasn't expecting kindness to feel so unfamiliar. Deepening connection. Michael moves closer, speaking slowly, deliberately. Michael, I want to be in your life. I want to build something real, but not something where you disappear or shrink yourself for my sake. I want both of us in it, fully, not have people trying to pretend we're whole. Emily exhales, like she's been underwater and finally surfaces. Emily, you really mean that? Michael, I wouldn't say it if I didn't. She covers her face for a second, overwhelmed. Emily, God, I'm not used to this. People usually walk away when things get complicated. Michael, then let me be the first person who doesn't. That line hits her harder than either of them expects. The distance they're finally closing. The kitchen feels warmer than it did before, less like a room and more like a sanctuary. Emily, you know, earlier tonight I didn't think we were going to fix this. Michael, me neither, Emily. But right now, sitting here, I feel like we're actually talking, not just reacting, and that's new for me. Michael, It's new for me too, but it feels right. Emily laughs softly, a real, genuine laugh. Emily, you know what I think scares me the most? Michael. What? Emily. How much I want to stay, even when I'm terrified. Michael reaches out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Michael. Stay anyway. Emily's breath catches slightly. Emily. Okay. And for the first time that night, neither of them is pulling away. The air in the kitchen feels gentler after their conversation, like something heavy has finally been set down. But neither Emily nor Michael fully knows what comes next. They only know they're not done, not even close. And maybe that's the first good sign they've had in days. They move from the kitchen to the living room, slower, softer, almost like they're afraid to break the fragile peace they've just built. Michael sets down the tea, and Emily wraps herself in the blanket draped over the couch. She tucks her knees close, looking smaller than usual, but calmer too. Emily, quiet. Can I ask you something? Something I've always wondered, but never said out loud? Michael, ask me anything. Emily hesitates, picking at the edge of the blanket. Emily, why do you care so much? Not in a bad way, but you put so much effort into understanding me, into talking, into staying. Most people don't do that. Michael blinks, caught off guard by the simplicity of the question. He leans back slowly, thinking. Michael, because nobody ever did that for me. By the time I realized I needed it, it was too late. Emily's expression softens. Emily, you mean after your dad left? Michael, not just that. Friends, relationships. I learned to expect people to leave when being close became inconvenient. So I promised myself, if I ever cared about someone, I wouldn't disappear when things got difficult. I'd stay, even if it scared me. Emily looks down at her hands. Emily, you must think I'm a mess. Michael, gentle smile. I think you're a human being with a heart that has had to carry too much alone. She lets out a breath that's half laugh, half confession. Emily, you always know how to say something that makes me feel seen and uncomfortable at the same time. Michael, good uncomfortable or the bad kind? Emily considers this. Emily, the kind that tells me I've been avoiding parts of myself. The kind that makes me want to grow. Michael nods slowly. Michael, that's all I want. Not perfection, just honesty. With me, but more importantly with yourself? The turning point. Emily leans her head against the back of the couch. She looks tired, but not the defeated kind of tired. More like someone finally letting their guard down. Emily, you know, when you asked earlier why I pulled away, I didn't answer fully. I wasn't just scared of losing myself. I was scared that if you really saw me every flaw, every fear, every messy part, you'd change your mind. Michael slides a little closer, not enough to overwhelm her, just enough to let her feel anchored. Michael, Emily, you think I haven't already seen those parts? Emily's eyes lift to meet his. Michael, and I'm still here. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. She absorbs that slowly, letting the meaning settle. Emily, you make it sound so easy. Michael, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Emily finally opens up. Emily pulls the blanket a little tighter around herself. Emily, I haven't told you everything either, about why I'm so scared to depend on anyone. Michael stays quiet, encouraging. Emily, I grew up in a house where feelings were treated like chores. If you were sad, fix it. If you were overwhelmed, hide it. If you needed help, figure it out yourself before you bother anyone. She swallows. Emily. So now, anytime someone tries to get close, I freeze. Not because I don't care, but because I don't know how to let them in without feeling like I'm doing something wrong. Michael's eyes soften with a kind of empathy that can't be faked. Michael, there's nothing wrong with needing people, Emily. Connection isn't a weakness. It's literally how we're built. Emily gives a small, self-conscious smile. Emily, maybe, but I don't know how to unlearn years of being told otherwise. Michael, you don't have to unlearn it alone. Emily looks at him, really looks this time. A quiet shift, something in her face changes. Not dramatically, not like a movie moment. It's something smaller, but more real. Trust. For the first time in a long time, she isn't bracing for disappointment. She's allowing hope in. Emily. Can we make a deal? Michael. What kind? Emily. You tell me when I'm shutting down, and I'll tell you when something scares me. No hiding. No disappearing. Just honesty, even if it sounds messy. Michael nods immediately. Michael, I can do that, Emily. And one more thing, Michael. Anything. Emily reaches out and gently takes his hand, something she hasn't done all evening. Emily, don't give up on me if I get it wrong sometimes. Michael closes his fingers around hers. Michael, I won't. The night settles quietly. They sit together in the quiet glow of the living room light. No tension, no fight, no distance. Just two people finally learning how to show up for each other. Emily leans her head on Michael's shoulder. He doesn't move. He just lets her rest. Emily, soft. Thank you for staying, Michael. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. A silence follows, not empty, not fearful. A silence that feels like healing. A silence that feels like the beginning of something real. Long, natural, emotional, human-style narrative, shaped for approximately 12 minutes of spoken audio. Tone, intimate, conversational, slow-burn relationship storytelling. The house feels different now. Not warmer exactly, but clearer. Like someone opened a window inside the relationship and let fresh air in after months of stale quiet. Emily is still leaning against Michael's shoulder when part 8 begins. She's calmer than she's been in weeks, but the kind of calm that comes right before another truth surfaces. She lifts her head gently. Emily, can I tell you something that might sound strange? Michael, strange doesn't scare me. Go on. Emily tucks a stray piece of hair behind her ear, a small nervous habit Michael knows well. Emily, I think I forgot what it feels like to be safe with someone. I don't mean physically, I mean emotionally. Tonight I felt it for the first time in a long time. Michael's breath catches not because he's surprised, but because he's relieved. Michael, you don't have to be scared of that feeling. You're allowed to have it. Emily nods slowly, almost like she's trying to accept a language she never learned properly. They move to the balcony. The room feels heavy with emotion, so Michael suggests something small. Michael, let's get some air. Stay with me. They walk to the small balcony outside the living room. The city is quiet streetlights glowing like distant thoughts. Emily leans on the railing, the night breeze brushing her hair. For a moment, neither speaks. Not because they're avoiding anything, but because silence feels peaceful. Finally, Emily breaks it. Emily, I've been thinking about earlier. The way I almost shut down again. I'm trying to understand why I do that. Michael stands beside her, hands in his pockets. Michael, you don't have to explain it perfectly. Just try. Emily looks up at the sky before answering, like the stars might help her find the words. Emily, when someone cares about me, I start imagining all the ways I could disappoint them, and it's easier to pull back early than to fail later. Michael turns toward her fully now. Michael, Emily, caring about someone isn't a performance. There's no failing. There's only trying or not trying. And you're trying. Emily's eyes soften at that really soften. The fear she never spoke out loud. Emily takes a long, steady breath. Emily, I was afraid you'd wake up one day and realize I'm not worth the effort, that I'm complicated, emotional, difficult. And I thought, if I leave first, I don't have to feel that. Michael gently shakes his head. Michael, you're not difficult. You're deep. You feel things intensely. That's not a flaw, it's a strength. You just haven't been around people who treated it like one. Emily swallows, the words hitting something tender. I wish I believed that. Michael, I'll believe it enough for both of us until you catch up. A small, almost disbelieving smile appears on her lips. Emily, you always know how to answer things like that. Michael, maybe. Or maybe I just finally learned how to talk about things I used to avoid. Emily looks curious now. Emily, like what? Michael hesitates just a second, but it's enough for her to notice. Emily, Michael, what are you scared of? He breathes out slowly. Michael, losing you. Not because I need you to survive, but because I feel more alive when we're honest with each other. Emily's face softens in a way that almost breaks him. A gentle, honest conversation. Emily turns her body toward him fully, leaning against the rail. Emily, I don't want to run anymore. Not from you, and not from myself. Her voice wavers, but she doesn't look away. Emily, but I need you to understand something. If I get overwhelmed, I might pull back again. Not because I don't care, but because my brain goes into protection mode before my heart even realizes it. Michael nods. Michael, then tell me when that happens. Let me sit in the dark with you until you remember you're not alone. Emily closes her eyes for a moment. A single tear escapes, not sad, just human. Emily, you mean that? Michael, with everything in me. She opens her eyes, and something in her starts to soften slowly, like ice melting in warm hands. They talk about the future in quiet hints. Emily shifts closer, their shoulders brushing. Emily, can I ask you something? Where do you see us months from now? Michael smiles, not big, but real. Michael, I see two people trying, learning, communicating, arguing better, apologizing honestly, growing together instead of apart, and maybe finding a rhythm that isn't built on fear. Emily exhales a shaky breath. Emily, that sounds almost too good. Michael, it's not perfect, but it's real. Emily nods. Emily, I want that. More than I've wanted anything in a long time. There's a moment where they both feel it. The shift, the alignment, the quiet agreement that they're choosing each other. Not dramatically, not loudly, but intentionally. The night closes softly. The breeze gets cooler, and Emily wraps her arms around herself. Michael notices immediately. Michael, you cold? Mily, a little. He drapes his jacket around her shoulders, not because she needs help, but because he wants to show care in the smallest, most consistent way. Emily holds the jacket closed. Emily, soft. Thank you. Michael leans on the railing beside her. Michael, Emily? Emily? Yeah? Michael, I'm not going anywhere. She lets out a breath she's been holding for months. Emily, I'm starting to believe that. The parting words before the night ends, before heading back inside, Emily quietly asks, Emily, will you stay with me tonight? Not like that. Just stay. I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. Michael nods instantly. Michael, of course. You don't even have to ask. Emily steps a little closer, taking his hand with a gentleness that feels like a promise. Emily, I'm glad we talked tonight. Michael, me too. They walk back inside together. Not fixed, not finished, but finally facing the same direction. The morning light comes quietly, not in a dramatic beam, not with birds singing like a movie, but soft, pale, almost shy creeping through the curtains and settling gently on the two people sleeping on opposite sides of the bed. Michael is awake first. He's on his back, staring at the ceiling, replaying last night in his mind. Not the heavy parts, those are already etched in him. But the small things? Emily's voice softening, her hand finding his without hesitation, the way she said, I'm starting to believe that. He lets out a slow breath, the kind people release only when something inside them finally loosens. He turns his head slightly. Emily is curled up under his jacket, breathing softly, her hair a small, gentle mess across the pillow. She looks peaceful, truly peaceful, a sight he hasn't seen in months. He doesn't wake her. Not yet. Emily wakes up slowly. A few minutes pass before Emily stirs. She doesn't open her eyes at first. She just shifts, stretching gently, pulling the jacket closer around her shoulders. Then she blinks, awake, confused, for half a second, then remembers. Her expression changes from startled to calm in a single breath. She turns her head toward Michael. Emily, you stayed. Her voice is soft, warm from sleep. Michael smiles. Michael, you asked me to. Emily looks down for a moment, nervously tugging on the edge of the jacket. Emily, I know, I guess I'm not used to people actually listening to me. Michael shifts a little closer, not touching her, but not far either. Michael, you asked for something honest last night. I wasn't going to walk away from that. Emily studies him, really. Studies him as if she's seen someone she never allowed herself to trust before. Emily, it felt different. Talking to you like that. Michael, it was different. She lets that sink in. The first real conversation without the night to protect them. Morning conversations are dangerous. There's no darkness to hide behind, no quiet to soften the edges of truth. But Emily doesn't retreat, not this time. She sits up, pulling her knees close, chin resting lightly on them. Emily, last night I told you things I've never said out loud. I thought I'd wake up embarrassed or wanting to run, but I don't. I just feel lighter. Michael sits up too, turning so he's facing her. Michael, sometimes honesty does that. It doesn't fix everything, but it opens a door. Emily nods slowly. Emily, we've had that door locked for so long. Michael, yeah, but we unlocked it together. She gives a tiny smile, almost shy, but meaningful. The real fear comes out. Emily hugs her knees a little tighter. Emily. Michael, can I tell you my actual biggest fear? The one underneath everything else? He nods immediately. Michael, you can tell me anything. She takes a long breath, her voice trembling but determined. Emily. I'm scared that if I let myself be happy, I'll lose it. That the moment something feels right, life will take it away. So I keep myself half distant, half prepared for the worst. I always believe things will end before they start. Michael absorbs that quietly. No judgment. No quick fix. Just listening. Michael, that sounds exhausting. A quiet laugh escapes her. Emily, it is. Michael, and lonely. Emily looks down. Emily, yeah. Michael moves a little closer, not touching her, but closer enough that she feels his presence. Michael, Emily, I don't know the future. I can't promise nothing will ever hurt. But I can promise I'm not here to leave the moment things get real. She lifts her eyes, vulnerable and unguarded. Emily, why? Why stay with someone like me? Michael, because you care deeply, even when you're scared. Because you try even when it's hard. And because being with someone brave enough to keep trying, that means everything. She blinks fast, swallowing emotions that rise too quickly. A quiet moment, then a question she was afraid to ask. Emily shifts slightly, sitting cross-legged now. Emily, if I try too, if I really try, do you think we could actually make this work? Michael doesn't hesitate. Michael, yes, I do. She looks down again, processing quietly. Her fingers trace idle shapes on the blanket. Emily, I want to learn how to trust without preparing to fall apart. Michael nods. Michael, and I want to learn how to communicate before things explode. Emily smiles more genuinely now. Emily, look at us. Two emotionally damaged people trying to act functional. Michael grins. Michael, we don't need to be functional. We just need to be honest. Emily lets out a soft breath relief mixed with hope. Breakfast and an unexpected soft moment. They get up, move to the kitchen. Emily sits at the counter while Michael makes coffee slow. Comfortable, the kind of mundane intimacy that's somehow more intimate than anything else. She watches him quietly. Emily, you know, seeing you like this calm, gentle in the morning, it makes me feel safe. Michael pauses, hand on the coffee mug. Michael, good, you're supposed to. Emily looks away, shy, smiling into her shoulder. Emily, I think I'm falling for you in the boring moments, not the dramatic ones. Michael walks over, setting her mug gently in front of her. Michael, those are the ones that last. She lifts the mug, fingers brushing his briefly. The small touch sends warmth through both of them. Emily, I want to choose us every day. Even when my brain tries to protect me from nothing. Michael pulls out a chair, sits across from her, eyes steady. Michael, then we'll choose each other together. Not perfectly, not easily, but consistently. Emily nods, a quiet certainty settling into her chest. The final words of the morning before the scene ends, Emily whispers something so soft it almost blends with the air. Emily, thank you for not giving up on me last night. Michael reaches across the table, palm up an invitation, not a demand. She places her hand in his without hesitation. Michael, I'm here, Emily, still here, and I'm not going anywhere. The morning settles around them, warm, hopeful, imperfect, real. Something fragile has shifted, something important. They're no longer two people avoiding a conversation. They're two people beginning one, together. Morning settles into the apartment like a quiet guest who knows where everything belongs. The coffee is warm, the sunlight is soft, and for the first time in a long time, nothing feels rushed. Emily sits barefoot on the couch with her mug cupped in both hands, knees drawn to her chest, hair still tousled from sleep. Michael is beside her, not touching, but close enough that the space between them feels intentional, comforting. For a few minutes they don't talk at all, and, surprisingly, the silence doesn't feel dangerous. It feels easy, safe, like maybe the worst of the storm has passed. Emily breaks the silence with a question she never dared ask. She glances sideways at him. Emily, do you ever think about how we started? Michael raises an eyebrow. Michael, you mean how fast everything happened? Emily smiles faintly. Emily. Yeah, fast, messy, confusing. And somehow we're still here. He nods. Michael, I think we both got caught off guard by each other, by how intense everything felt right away. She laughs under her breath. Emily, it terrified me. Michael, it terrified me too. Emily takes a sip of her coffee, thinking, Emily, is that why we crashed so hard, because it was too much, too soon? Michael leans back against the couch. Michael, I don't think the problem was how fast we fell. I think the problem was that neither of us believed it was safe to fall. Emily doesn't answer immediately. Her eyes shift deep, thoughtful, a little bit sad, because she knows he's right. The conversation turns honest. Again, she sets her mug down on the coffee table. Emily, I want to tell you something, but I need you to promise you won't make fun of me. Michael sits up straighter. Michael, I'd never do that. Emily takes a breath big enough to signal the weight of what she's about to say. Emily, when I pulled away, when I started acting distant and cold, it wasn't because I stopped caring. It was because I cared too much, and I didn't know how to handle the feeling. Michael feels something tighten in him, not anger, but recognition. Michael, I know, I felt it. It was like watching you build a wall brick by brick, and knowing you were doing it to protect yourself, not to hurt me. Emily's shoulders drop, relieved he understood. Emily, I thought if I acted like I didn't need you, I could convince myself not to get attached. Michael gives her a soft, almost amused smile. Michael, how'd that work out? Emily rolls her eyes and laughs for real. Emily, terribly, obviously. They share a moment of lightness, something warm and rare, before her expression becomes serious again. Emily's fear of being too much comes out. Emily, do you ever feel like if people saw the real you, your insecurities, your fears, your anxiety, they'd walk away? Michael answers almost instantly. Michael, all the time. Emily looks surprised. Emily, you? Really? He nods. Michael, I'm good at looking composed, but that doesn't mean I'm not scared. She studies him as if she's seeing something new. Emily, I never thought you got scared. Michael, I'm terrified of losing people I care about, especially when things start to matter. Emily's expression softens to something fragile and understanding. Emily, same. A moment that changes the mood. Emily shifts slightly, just an inch closer, but enough for Michael to notice. Emily, can I tell you something else? Michael, of course. She hesitates then. Emily, when you stayed last night, when you didn't walk away, something in me changed. Something that's been locked up for years. Michael's chest tightens. Michael, what changed? Emily looks at him, eyes warm and painfully honest. Emily, I realized I want you. Not the version of you I built in my head. Not the fantasy. You, as you are. Flaws and all. She exhales shakily. M-I-L-Y. And I want you to want me. Not the polished version of me that hides every fear and insecurity. Michael meets her eyes, steady and unguarded. Michael, I do want you, exactly as you are. Emily closes her eyes briefly, absorbing the words like warmth after a long winter. And then something shifts just as the moment settles comfortably. There's a knock at the door. A sudden sharp disruption. Emily jumps slightly, startled. Michael stands, confused. Michael, I'm not expecting anyone? Emily's voice lowers, tense. Emily, neither am one. He walks to the door slowly, cautiously. Emily follows a few steps behind, anxiety flickering across her face. Michael puts his hand on the doorknob, then pauses. He glances at her. Michael, you okay? She nods barely. Emily, yeah, just open it. Michael inhales, turns the knob, and the door swings open. And everything changes. Emily's face drains of color. Michael freezes. And the person standing in the doorway says something that shifts the entire story. Emily, we need to talk. The voice is familiar. Too familiar. It's someone from Emily's past. Someone she never expected to see again. Someone she never prepared to face. Someone who still holds a piece of her she never wanted Michael to know about. Michael looks at Emily. Emily looks at the floor, and the quiet morning shatters. The storm outside had grown into something almost unnatural. Wind curled around the house, like fingers trying to pry it open. Each time thunder rolled across the sky, the lights flickered, just enough to make Emma's breath catch. And then the knock came again, not loud, not hurried, not panicked. Just 3 slow, deliberate taps like someone who already knew she was inside, watching, hesitating, and wanted to give her time to be afraid. Emma lowered her hand from the lock. Her heart wasn't just beating fast anymore. It felt like it was shaking inside her chest. "Who is it?" she called out. No answer. Only the wind, and then another knock, lighter this time. Almost polite. Jonah stepped away from the kitchen doorway and moved to her side. His voice was steady, but his jaw was tight. "Don't open it," he whispered. "Whatever it is, whoever it is, something feels wrong," and he was right. Because something new had happened, something subtle but chilling. The house had gone completely silent. The refrigerator had stopped humming. The heater had shut off. Even the storm outside seemed muffled, like sound was being swallowed before it reached them. Emma's fingers curled into Jonah's sleeve. "Should we call someone?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jonah nodded and pulled out his phone. But the moment he pressed the screen, it went black. No battery warning, no glitch, it simply died. He frowned, tapping the button again. Nothing. Emma pulled out her own phone. Also dead. Both of them exchanged a look that said everything without needing words. This wasn't normal. This wasn't coincidence. It was intention. A shadow moved under the door. Emma gasped and stepped back. She could see it clearly, someone standing on the other side. Not shifting weight, not moving a hand. Just standing, still, waiting. Jonah grabbed the nearest object he could use as protection, a heavy iron candle holder from the table. He stepped between Emma and the door. "Whoever you are," he said, voice low and calm. "This isn't funny. Walk away." For a moment, nothing happened. And then the shadow lowered, slowly, like the person outside had crouched down, to look under the gap between the door and the floor. Emma clapped a hand over her mouth to stop a scream. She could feel the cold presence of eyes staring in, watching, studying the shape of their feet, their shadows, the outline of their legs. Jonah tightened his grip on the candle holder. "Back away from the door," he whispered to Emma, but she couldn't move. Her limbs were trembling and rooted to the spot. The doorknob twitched. Emma's breath caught. It twitched again softly at first, then more decisively, like someone was testing how much force it would take to turn it. Jonah stepped forward. "Stop," he said. And instantly everything stopped. The knob went still. The shadow froze. Even the rain outside seemed to pause. A long moment of silence stretched out, suffocating in its intensity. Then a voice, muffled, soft, unfamiliar. Emma. Her blood ran cold. She didn't recognize the voice, yet it spoke her name with the kind of familiarity only someone close would use. Jonah's breath hitched. "Don't answer it," he whispered sharply. "Don't, Emma," the voice said again. Closer now, right against the wood. "You forgot something." Emma shook her head violently. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no. I don't know who that is." Jonah raised the candle holder, ready to swing. "Who are you?" he called through the door. Silence. Then the voice replied, still soft, still unsettlingly calm. "Let me in." Emma backed away until she hit the wall. Her pulse was racing so fast she felt dizzy. "No," Jonah said firmly. "You're not coming inside." The voice exhaled, disappointed, not angry, not surprised, just disappointed. "Then I suppose," it murmured, "I'll have to let myself in." The doorknob twisted sharply. Jonah sprang forward, throwing his shoulder into the door as it shook violently in its frame, rattling like someone on the other side had suddenly gained impossible strength. Emma screamed. Jonah gritted his teeth, pushing back with every ounce of force he had. "Emma, help me." She ran to join him, pressing her weight against the door. The frame groaned, the hinges screeched. It felt like the entire house was resisting something it didn't want inside. The pressure stopped as suddenly as it started. Silence. Utter silence. Jonah kept his shoulder braced, panting. Emma's hands trembled against the wood. And then the house lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. The storm outside roared back into existence. The pressure vanished. The shadow disappeared. For a moment it felt like everything was normal again. But then a faint sound rose from the other side of the door. A single, chilling sound. Footsteps. Walking away, slowly, deliberately. Jonah waited until the last echo faded, then stepped back, heart hammering. Emma stared at the door, her voice breaking. Jonah? What if a small noise cut her off? Not from the door, from inside the house. Somewhere deeper, somewhere dark. Jonah turned slowly toward the hallway. Emma clutched his arm. "Jonah, we're not alone." Emma's lungs locked. The silhouette at the end of the hallway didn't move, didn't sway, didn't even seem to breathe. It was just their tall, unnaturally still, occupying the darkness like it was part of it. Jonah grabbed Emma's arm and pulled her behind him. "Stay back," he whispered, though his voice cracked with fear. The little girl remained on the floor, head bowed, hair shielding her face again. She didn't look at the figure. She didn't need to. She already knew it was there. The house had become so silent that Emma could hear her own heartbeat thrumming in her ears. The storm outside hammered against the windows, gusts rattling the thin panes, but none of it mattered. The danger wasn't outside anymore. Jonah raised the candle holder, half-heartedly, like a person clutching a toy sword in front of a nightmare. The silhouette didn't react. No shifting, no stepping forward, just watching. "Who are you?" Jonah shouted, though it came out thinner than he hoped. The figure didn't answer. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Jonah, look at its feet." Jonah followed her gaze, and his breath stuttered. The silhouette's feet weren't touching the ground. It floated inches above the floorboards. Emma felt her throat tighten painfully. The girl stood now, slowly, as if strings were being pulled from above. Her posture shifted, too stiff, too deliberate for an 8-year-old child. When she spoke, her voice was calm, soft, empty. "He does not walk. He follows." Jonah stepped back, bumping into Emma. "Who is he?" Emma whispered. The girl tilted her head. "He's the one who comes when you feel watched. But tell yourself you're imagining it. He's the reason you've been waking up at 3:12 every night. He's the shadow you see when you turn off the lights." Emma's heart pounded so hard she felt faint. Jonah grabbed her hand. "Don't listen. She's trying to scare us." The girl's expression didn't change. "Why would I scare you? You let me in." Jonah blinked. "We didn't let." Emma suddenly remembered the moment the wind had blown the front door open, the cold gust. The way the shadows shifted across the wall afterward, like something had slipped inside with them. She felt sick. The silhouette moved. Just an inch, barely enough to notice, but it moved. Jonah jerked back like he'd been electrically shocked. "Okay, we're leaving. Get your shoes, Emma. We're leaving now." But Emma couldn't move, because the figure had taken another small, gliding step. No sound, no weight, just motion. And with each inch forward, the air grew colder. The girl turned to Emma, her dark eyes softening, not with human sadness, but with something more ancient, more resigned. "You can't outrun something that doesn't follow your rules." Jonah grabbed the girl's arm. "We're taking her with us. I don't care who or what you are, we're saving this kid." The girl didn't pull away, but she whispered, "Do you want to know why I came to your house?" Jonah hesitated. Emma felt her knees weaken. The girl raised her face fully now, allowing the candlelight to reveal something that made both of them step back. Her skin wasn't just pale. It was gray, almost translucent, as if light passed through her rather than bounced off. She was not entirely here, not entirely alive, not entirely anything. The girl touched Emma's hand gently, like a cold leaf brushing skin. "I came to warn you." Emma's voice cracked. "Warn us about what?" The girl's gaze drifted past Emma, toward the dark figure. "He followed me too, and I didn't understand what he was, until it was too late." Jonah's voice was shaking now. "What does he want?" The girl lowered her head. "He wants someone new." The silhouette took another gliding step, closer now, close enough that Emma could see the faint outline of shoulders, the hint of a face, but no features she could understand. Jonah shouted, "Emma, move!" He grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward the kitchen, away from the hallway. The little girl didn't follow. Emma screamed, "Come on, we're not leaving you." But the girl only shook her head, smiling sadly. "I'm not leaving either." Jonah dragged Emma toward the back door. The hallway lights flickered, one by one, popping out in rapid succession like something invisible rushed past each bulb. Darkness surged toward them. Jonah fumbled with the back door lock. His hands were shaking violently. "Hurry!" Emma cried. "I'm trying." A cold wave slammed through the house like a shift in pressure. The kitchen lights dimmed, then flickered, then went out. The back door lock clicked, but not from Jonah touching it. It clicked itself, locked. Emma's breath collapsed in her chest. Jonah tried again, no use. The mechanism wouldn't budge. The little girl's voice drifted softly from behind them. "He doesn't like when people run." Jonah spun around, but the girl wasn't behind them. She was standing in the hallway now, right beside the silhouette, and she was no longer crying. Her voice was layered again, childlike and ancient, overlapping like multiple recordings playing at once. "You asked who he wants." Emma and Jonah pressed against the locked door as the silhouette leaned forward, drifting toward them. The girl pointed one small finger at Emma. "He wants the one who heard him first." Emma felt her blood turn to ice. Jonah stepped in front of her. "Over my dead," but the girl interrupted softly. "That's the order he prefers." The silhouette stretched taller, wider, reaching. Emma tried to scream, but no sound came out. And then something knocked. Not from the hallway, from the front door. A slow, steady, deliberate knock. 3 taps. The silhouette froze. A girl turned her head sharply toward the sound. Jonah whispered, "Who is that?" The girl smiled. "You don't want to know." The knocking came again, louder, harder. Then a voice muffled through the wood called out, "Emma, Jonah, let me in." Emma's blood ran cold. She knew that voice, and the silhouette began to turn. The knock didn't just echo through the house. It vibrated through Emma's bones. 3 heavy, deliberate taps. Jonah tightened his grip on the candle holder, his breath ragged. "Emma." That voice. That sounded like... "I know," Emma whispered, barely able to get the words out. "But he's not here." "He can't be here." The storm growled outside, sheets of rain slamming against the windows. Thunder rumbled like a warning buried beneath the sky. Then the voice came again, clearer this time, unmistakable. "Emma, Jonah." "Open the door." Jonah stared at her with wide, disbelieving eyes. "That was your brother." "That was Liam." Emma's stomach twisted so sharply she had to brace herself against the counter. "My brother is in Seattle," she whispered. "He's 3 states away. He hasn't been here in months." Jonah swallowed. Then what the hell is talking in his voice? Behind them, the silhouette at the end of the hallway shifted, its head turning toward the front door like a predator sensing competition. The little girl, still beside the shadow, spoke softly, her voice echoing unnaturally through the dark. "He likes to sound familiar." Emma felt her knees weaken. The knocking started again, slow at first, then harder, faster. Shaking the frame, Jonah took a step toward the living room. Emma grabbed his arm. "Don't open it," she hissed. "Jonah, don't even go near it." But Jonah shook off her hand, his face pale with confusion. "If it is Liam, if something happened." "It's not him," Emma cried. "Jonah, please listen to me." But he was already moving. The silhouette reacted instantly. Its whole form tightened like a coiled rope pulled taut. Then it began gliding toward Jonah, quickly. Emma ran after him, heart pounding, voice shattering into raw panic. "Jonah!" He reached the living room just as the silhouette entered the kitchen doorway, its presence warping the shadows around it. The front door rattled violently now, as if something was trying to tear it off the hinges. "Emma, open." The voice outside cracked, then deepened, then shifted like someone changing masks mid-sentence. "Open the door." Jonah turned back toward Emma, terrified now. "That wasn't Liam." The girl's voice drifted down the hallway. "He can't come inside unless someone lets him." Emma's shoulders shook uncontrollably. Jonah placed a hand on the door, inches from the knob. His fingers trembled. "Emma, I think it's trying to trick us into," he stopped, because the knob began turning on its own, slowly, deliberately. Jonah stumbled back. Emma screamed, "Get away from it!" The girl's voice echoed again, emotionless. "It's how he enters new homes." Jonah grabbed Emma's hand, backing away as the knob twisted harder, metal scraping violently. The silhouette drifted closer, growing darker as the storm flickered lightning across the windows. Emma felt a pressure in her ears like the air itself thickened. Jonah whispered, "He's trying to get in." Through both sides, Emma's eyes widened. The silhouette froze suddenly, head snapping toward the front door, almost as if it feared whatever was on the other side, or recognized it. The girl stepped forward, tilting her head like she was listening to something only she could hear. Her voice lowered. "He shouldn't be here. He comes alone." Emma's breath caught. "What do you mean? There aren't supposed to be 2 of them." Silence crashed through the house. Even the storm seemed to pause. Jonah stared at the girl. "2? 2 what?" But the girl didn't answer, because the silhouette at the hallway's end slowly backed away, like a wild animal retreating from something even more dangerous. The knocking stopped abruptly. For a moment there was nothing. No footsteps, no whispering, no shadows moving with intention. Just the sound of Emma's pulse hammering in her ears. Jonah edged closer to the door, swallowing hard. Maybe whatever was out there left. Emma shook her head violently. "No, things like this don't just walk away." Jonah hesitated. Then from the other side of the door a new sound began. Not knocking, scratching, soft at first, then frantic. Fingers no, nails dragging down the wood. Emma stumbled back, her hand covering her mouth to keep from screaming. Jonah whispered, "It's trying to get in." Another way. The scratching stopped, and then a whisper came through the crack at the bottom of the door. Not Liam, not anything human, just one stretched, warping word. "Emma." The silhouette in the hallway twitched violently, its form warping like static. The little girl's expression twisted with fear for the first time. She backed away from the shadow. "He's not supposed to know your name." Emma felt the world tilt. "How does he?" The girl's voice overlapped with itself, 3 tones at once. "Something else is here. Something older. Something he doesn't control." Jonah grabbed Emma's arm. "We need to hide. Basement, attic, anywhere, just move." He pulled her toward the staircase. But before they reached it, the front door handle stopped turning. The house fell dead silent, and then the door slowly began to open, not cracked, not nudged by the wind. It opened wide, smoothly, calmly, as if someone polite were stepping in. The silhouette in the hallway began to dissolve like smoke. The little girl's eyes widened. Oh no. Emma could barely breathe. What's coming in?" she whispered. The girl shook her head. "He isn't coming in." Jonah's voice shook. "Then who?" A voice spoke from the doorway. Clear, warm, perfectly human. Too human. "Emma? Why are you running from me?" Emma's blood ran cold. Because this time it was Liam's voice. Exactly his voice, tone, breath, pattern. Jonah whispered, "Emma." "That sounds just like him." The girl stepped backward, trembling violently now. "That's not him," she said. "That's the one the shadows fear." Emma turned slowly, too slowly, and standing in the open doorway dripping water onto the floor was a figure shaped exactly like her brother. Same face, same gentle smile. But the eyes were wrong. Too still, too dark, too empty. The Liam thing stepped inside, and the front door closed behind it. For a long moment, Mark couldn't speak. He just stood there in the quiet living room, staring at the photograph Emma had placed on the table, the photo of his mother, smiling in a way he hadn't seen since he was a child, and beneath it, the letter, the one his mother had written 13 years ago, but never had the courage to give him. Emma watched him carefully, her hands folded in her lap. She didn't rush him. She didn't ask what the letter said. She just let him breathe, let him exist in all the weight he had carried for half his life. Mark finally sank onto the couch. "I don't even know what to feel," he whispered. "It's like she was hurting all this time, and I missed it. I didn't want to see it. I turned myself into this stone, and all she wanted was for me to forgive her." Emma slid a little closer. "You weren't a stone. You were a kid trying to survive." He wiped his face with both hands. "She wrote that she pushed me away because she didn't know how to explain the divorce, that she thought protecting me from the fights was better than telling me the truth." His voice cracked. "She thought I hated her, and all this time I thought she didn't care." Emma reached out and rested her hand on his shoulder. Two people who loved each other, but both too scared to talk. Mark laughed through the tears, one of those laughs that doesn't feel like laughter, more like a gasp for air. "Do you know what the worst part is?" he said. "I could have called her at any time. I could have asked, I could have tried, and I just didn't." He looked at the letter again, tracing his finger over the handwriting. "She forgave me before I even asked for forgiveness." Emma nodded. "Sometimes parents think they have to be perfect, and when they can't be, they run. They hide their fear behind silence. Kids grow up thinking that silence means rejection, but most of the time it means shame." Mark felt the truth hit him in a way nothing else had. His mom wasn't the villain of his childhood. His dad wasn't the hero, and he wasn't the broken one. They were all just human. He leaned back, closing his eyes. "What do I do now?" he asked softly. Emma didn't hesitate. "You talk to her." "Not tomorrow, not next month, tonight." Mark hesitated. "What if she doesn't want to talk?" Emma shook her head. "I've seen her face when your name comes up. I've seen her pause at every voicemail from unknown numbers because she hopes it's you. Just try." The house felt different, now like the air had shifted, like something long frozen had finally started to melt. Mark stood, picking up the letter. "I'm scared," he admitted. Emma smiled gently. "That means it matters." He walked toward the front door, but paused. Emma? Yeah? He looked at her with a vulnerability she had never seen in him before. Thank you for not giving up on me. Emma exhaled slowly, almost trembling. You don't give up on the people you care about. Mark felt something stir in his chest, something he thought he'd lost the ability to feel. He stepped outside into the cool night air. The world looked different now, quieter, softer, like it was waiting for him to take his next step. He pulled out his phone, stared at his mother's contact name. His thumb hovered over the call button. The moment stretched, and then he pressed it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then a click. Mark? Her voice, shaky, hopeful, afraid. Mark swallowed hard. Mom, can we talk? Silence, but not the painful kind. The kind that feels like a wound finally beginning to heal. Of course, she whispered. I've been waiting, and for the first time in 13 years, Mark didn't feel alone. Mark drove without really seeing the road his mind, replaying the sound of his mother's voice over and over again. It had been years since he'd heard it without anger in between. Years since it felt warm. The night air was cool, the streets mostly empty. He turned down the familiar road leading to his childhood home, a place he hadn't visited in what felt like another lifetime. As he pulled into the driveway, his heart hammered against his ribs. The porch light was on, casting a soft glow across the yard, just like it had when he was a kid waiting for her to come home after late shifts. He sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Every memory, good and painful, rushed up at once. Then he stepped out. The door opened before he even made it halfway across the yard. His mother stood there, older than he remembered, but smaller somehow, softer. A person who had carried too much for too long. Hi, Mark said quietly. She pressed a hand over her mouth, tears forming instantly. Mark, you came. He nodded, unable to get anything else out. She stepped aside to let him in. The house smelled exactly the same, like lavender laundry detergent, and something warm baked earlier in the evening. It hit him unexpectedly hard. He walked inside slowly, like entering a sacred place. His mother closed the door behind them and turned. For a moment, neither spoke, just looked, studied the years they had missed on each other's faces. Finally, she whispered, I thought you hated me. Mark swallowed. I thought you didn't want me. Her breath trembled as she stepped forward, shaking her head. Mark, sweetheart, I wanted you so much it hurt. I just didn't know how to be the mother you needed. I was scared all the time. And when your father left, everything fell apart so fast. I felt like if I told you the truth, you would look at me differently. He nodded slowly. I did. She winced, closing her eyes. I know. But now, Mark continued softly, I'm starting to understand. Maybe for the first time. His mother carefully reached out, touching his arm like she was checking to see if he was really there. You grew up without me, she whispered, tears falling freely now. You learned to be strong without me, and I hate myself for that. Mark shook his head. I didn't need you to be perfect. She leaned back against the counter, wiping her cheeks. You deserved better. Mark's voice cracked. We both did. Silence fell again, not a wall, not a barrier, but a quiet place where truth could finally breathe. His mother walked to a small wooden box on the shelf and opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them. She handed the box to him. I wrote to you every year, she said softly. Every birthday, every Christmas. Every time I remembered a story about you that I wanted to keep, I didn't send them because I thought it would make things worse. I thought you'd throw them away." Mark stared at the stack of envelopes, some old and yellowed, some newer each one, holding a moment she couldn't share. "Why didn't you try again?" he asked, voice breaking. Her eyes filled with guilt. "Because every time I picked up the phone, I was terrified you wouldn't answer. Or worse, you would, and you'd tell me to go away. And I couldn't survive hearing that from my own son." Mark lowered his head, feeling the weight of her fear, her love, her mistakes. "Mom," he whispered, "I'm here now." She stepped forward, hesitant at first, then wrapped her arms around him with a desperation Dee never felt from her before. It wasn't a perfect hug. It wasn't a magical fix. It was two people learning how to hold each other again. "I'm sorry," she cried into his shoulder. "For everything. For every year I missed. For every moment I made you feel alone. I wish I could take it all back." Mark's eyes burned. "I'm sorry, too." They stood like that for a long time, years of silence finally breaking open. After they sat down, she poured them tea, her hands still trembling. "There's something you should know," she said quietly. "Something I never understood until recently." Mark looked up. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "I didn't just lose you because I was scared. I lost you because I didn't know how to confront what your father told you." Mark frowned. "What did he tell me?" She hesitated, then whispered, "He told you I chose my new life over you. But that's not the truth. The truth is, he asked me to leave because he didn't want you to see us fighting anymore. He said you'd be better off without the chaos." Mark sat back, stunned. "He said you walked out." She shook her head, tears falling again. "I was pushed out, Mark. I left because I thought staying would destroy you." The room felt heavier now, but also clearer. For the first time, the story made sense, not as a child saw it, but as an adult could finally understand it. Mark closed his eyes, letting the truth sink in. When he opened them again, he breathed deeply and nodded. "Okay," he said quietly. "Then let's start here." His mother looked up hopefully. "You mean—" He finished the sentence for her. "Let's start over." Her face crumpled as she covered her mouth, crying, not from sadness this time, but relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you, Mark." They sat there until the night faded into early morning talking, listening, rebuilding piece by fragile piece. And for the first time in 13 years, hope lived in that house again. Morning light slid through the curtains, soft and gold, falling across the small kitchen table where Mark and his mother now sat. 2 cups of tea had long gone cold between them, but neither moved, as if leaving the table would break something fragile that had only just begun healing. His mother finally exhaled. "There's one last thing I need to tell you," she said quietly. "But I don't know how you'll feel." Mark braced himself. "Say it." She folded her hands in her lap hands that had once held him as a baby, now shaking with fear. "I tried to come back," she whispered, "more than once. But every time your father told me you weren't ready, that you didn't want to see me." Mark froze. "He told me you didn't want to see me," he said slowly. For a long moment neither spoke. 2 versions of the same past collided in the middle of the room. His mother's voice cracked. "I think he was afraid. Afraid that if you and I reconnected, you would leave him the way he left me." Mark leaned back in his chair, feeling the world tilt. All those years of silence, all those birthdays alone, all those nights wondering why she didn't love him enough to stay. And all this time, the truth had been locked behind fear, mistakes, and stories twisted to protect wounded adults at the expense of a child. He stood slowly. "I need to talk to him." His mother nodded. "I know." The confrontation Mark drove to his father's house, the place where every memory of childhood lived in sharp edges. When his father opened the door, he froze. "Mark?" He looked older, more tired. But his eyes, those same eyes Mark inherited, lit up with surprise. "I need to talk," Mark said. They sat in the living room, the air heavy with unspoken things. "Dad," Mark began carefully, "did you tell Mom I didn't want to see her?" His father looked down. His jaw tightened. "Yes," he said finally. "I did." Mark's chest tightened. "Why?" His father swallowed hard. "Because I thought she'd take you away from me, and I couldn't lose you too." Mark stared. "You didn't lose me," he said softly. "You pushed her out. You pushed both of us into years of silence we didn't deserve." His father looked up then, eyes glistening. "I know," he whispered, "and I've regretted it every day." Mark felt anger, surge anger he'd been carrying his whole life, but beneath it, something else was happening. He saw not a villain, not a monster, just a broken man who made terrible choices because he didn't know another way. Mark's voice trembled. "You could have told me the truth. You could have given me the chance to decide." His father nodded slowly. "I was wrong. There it was." Words Mark had needed since he was old enough to understand what loss felt like. "I'm sorry, son," his father whispered. "I'm so sorry." Mark sat back, exhausted, hurting, but breathing easier than before. "I'm not asking you to fix the past," he said gently, "but I won't let you rewrite it anymore." His father lowered his head. "What happens now?" he asked. Mark took a long breath. "Now," he said, "we stop pretending. No more stories. No more lies. If we build something new, it has to be real." His father nodded, tears falling. "I want that." The choice that evening, Mark drove back to his mother's house. She stepped outside before he even parked. "Well?" she asked softly. He walked toward her. "We can't change what happened," he said, "but we can decide what happens next." She wiped her eyes. "And what do you want?" Mark looked at the woman who had been a mystery, a memory, a ghost, and now, finally, a person he could understand. "I want you in my life," he said. "If you still want that, too." Her breath caught. "I've wanted that every day." She stepped forward and hugged him again, this time without hesitation, without fear, without years between them. Mark didn't pull away. For the first time, their story felt like it belonged to both of them, not to the past. The final scene weeks passed. A slow, cautious rebuilding began. Small steps, small conversations, small moments of trust stitched together like pieces of a quilt. One evening, Mark invited both his parents to a quiet dinner at a little restaurant overlooking the river. They were nervous, awkward, unsure of how to exist in the same space, but they came. They sat together, talked, listened, not perfectly, not cleanly, but honestly. And when the night ended, something remarkable happened. Mark stood outside with them by the water, watching the city lights ripple on the river's surface. His mother touched his arm. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. His father nodded slowly beside her. "Me too," he said. "You're better than both of us ever were." Mark looked at them, two flawed people who had broken him, shaped him, loved him in incomplete ways, and he finally understood something. Healing doesn't erase the past. It transforms it, turns pain into wisdom, turns wounds into roots, turns broken families into something that can grow again. He smiled softly. "I'm proud of us," he said. And for the first time in decades, they all walked away together. Not as a perfect family, but as a possible one.